So, from the fullness of the heart, the mouth speaks. I want to say that one more time. From the fullness of the heart, the mouth speaks. And so, of course, the question is, what are our hearts full of? Now, when we speak, our words matter. And Jesus and the gospel and our first reading both focus on the importance of our words and using our words well. And the reason why they matter so much is because our words show what's going on deeper inside, down in our hearts. And so I want to focus on three kinds of words. So the first is cynicism. Second one is sarcasm. And the last one is everybody's favorite, gossip. So first, cynicism. You know, a cynic is someone who is right 5% of the time because 100% of the time their voice sounds like this. It's never going to work. No one's motives are ever really pure. I don't trust him. I don't trust her. It's all just a game. That's the voice of the cynic. And the reason why the cynic is right 5% of the time is because sometimes people's motives are not pure. Sometimes things fail. Sometimes people aren't always nice. 5% of the time. But 95% of the time, the cynic is wrong. And it's important for us to understand that really someone becomes cynical because at one time they were probably passionate. They're probably passionate about something or some cause or some person, and they got burned. They got hurt. And when they got hurt, they adopted a cynical attitude so that nothing could ever disappoint them again. Because if I distrust everything, nothing gets close enough to hurt me. The problem is it betrays an attitude of the heart. It betrays a heart that is lacking in trust and in faith. Now the next one is even more fun, sarcasm. We even have television shows about sarcasm. Sarcasm comes from two Greek words, sarx, which means flesh, and chasm comes from a word that means to bite. And so sarcasm is literally biting another person's flesh. Sounds gross, right? Except unless you're on a celebrity roast, right? Then it's entertainment until it goes off the rails. And then we see how hurt other people become with sarcasm. We see that our biting the flesh of another person really does damage. Sarcasm is a way of really taking a bite out of another person. And it's almost always used in an ironic way with the intention of hurt. Sometimes we think that it's humor, but most of the time, if it's at the expense of another person, it's pain. And it's us inflicting pain on another person. And of course, what it betrays is an attitude of the heart that's willing to take a bite out of another person, an aggressiveness in us that is lashing out. Maybe because we're resentful, maybe because we are afraid of expressing ourselves directly, and so we go passive and use a passive-aggressive tool to try and make a point. Whatever the reason behind it is, we know that sarcasm causes real damage. And then our favorite, gossip. Now, gossip is not only wrong when it's untrue, it's also wrong when it's true. Just because I know something about someone, even if I know it's true, if it's going to damage their reputation, sharing that information with that intention is always wrong. In fact, Pope Francis said that when we participate in gossip, we actually imitate the action of Cain when he murdered his brother Abel. So the Pope likens gossip to a form of murder because long before we kill someone's body, we kill their reputation. We murder their name. Now, full disclosure, I am guilty of all three. I am a sinner. I have participated in every one of those forms of speech, and I know the damage that they cause. I know the harm that it creates. And yet I find myself doing it. So what do I do about it? Well, thanks be to God, you are sitting in the cathedral of the most sacred heart of Jesus. And because we are sitting in the cathedral of the most sacred heart of Jesus, you may not be aware of this, but you are having an encounter with the heart of Christ. That's what this building, that's what this celebration of the Eucharist is intended to do for us, is to put our heart in touch with the heart of Jesus. And in fact, so much so that we even wrote phrases underneath the windows around the church to remind us of the qualities of the heart of Jesus. In fact, right over here it says, King and center of all hearts, full of love and mercy. And so when we think about those qualities of the heart of Jesus, we start to realize that if we open our hearts up to the heart of Jesus and allow him to enter in, his heart can form our heart and heal our heart of those things that are lacking, of those illnesses that afflict our heart, of those realities of our hearts that sometimes get manifested in our words. And the reason why it matters so much is because we gather here knowing that we are sinners. And we begin our Lenten journey on Wednesday knowing that we are all in need of conversion, that every one of us has some area of our life that we need to get closer to the Lord in, that we want to invite him in close enough so that our hearts can be healed. And there's another great phrase, on the back wall of the church, there's a quote from Psalm 85, because after we gather together and we celebrate the Eucharist and we actually feed on the body and blood of Christ, our hearts are changed. We not only gather here to encounter the heart of Christ, but to acquire the heart of Christ. And then, as we leave, our hearts go out prepared to give glory and praise to God.